Oh, welcome to the Red Doors podcast. We've gone off a really solid result against Spurs 3-0. Rashford, Cavani and Ronaldo getting on the score sheet. So, United versus, what were your thoughts on that? Because obviously we'll get on to Atalanta later on in the podcast, but I think we can all be really encouraged.
Everyone's super happy that we scored 3 goals, and that's great. But honestly, the best thing to come out of this match was the fact that we kept a clean sheet, which hasn't happened in a very long time, and I'm glad to see it. The previous matches was it 5 against Liverpool, 2 to Atalanta, 4 to Leicester. This defense couldn't stop anybody. So it was great to see us. I know that Spurs have their issues under Nuno, whose job seems to be hanging by a thread as we're speaking, but uh, it's great for us to keep a clean sheet against a team that has the talents on paper of Heung-min Son, Harry Kane, Lucas Moura, Dean Bergwijn, Dele Alli, Giovanni Lo Celso, all these guys. So I think the clean sheet was the most important thing, but ultimately getting the win as well, obviously, was vital for Ollie. And I'm really pleased with the performance and the result. I loved how we kept our shape. I loved the way that things kind of flowed, and it was just a happy day for the club.
Yeah, way, way better. And I think it was the first time since probably Leeds in the first game of the season. You could say maybe Newcastle, but even that wasn't really perfect.
Yeah, I
But we
think
had
what
a
I think you can say that the Leeds and this match were 90-minute
yeah,
performances.
yeah,
Newcastle was a 45-minute performance. On the whole, it was great. Don't get me wrong. We deserved to win that game by a lot of goals, and we did. It is Ronaldo's debut, and he scored and all of that. But if you look at the first half on balance, it wasn't great. This was good from start to finish. So that was nice to see.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, way, way better. And I'm really liking this system as well. I don't know what Vin thinks.
Sorry, I forgot that. Yeah, I think, like the surgeon said, overall it was a pretty solid performance from start to finish. I think Ollie got everything spot on from the beginning till the final whistle. I'd say the team selection was right. The change in formation had to be done. Something had to be changed, either changing personnel or changing formation. So he did both, a bit of both, you could say. It was great to see him switch to what was a 3-4-1-2, which was like a 5-3-2 off the ball, and then a 3-4-3 on the ball. So it was great to see him change systems, knowing that our defense has been extremely leaky, and to come out of that with a clean sheet. I think that just speaks for itself, and I think it's a system that we should stick to for the next 3-4 games, I'd say, until we start to garner a lot more confidence, until our defense starts to feel a lot more secure before we can go back to play a bit of the usual 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3 expansive football. Ollie got the substitutions right as well, getting on Lingard, Rashford, knowing that the Spurs team, which is leaving behind a lot of space, who are going to go for the goals. They're going to leave a lot of space behind. They're going to play a high line, so use the pace of Rashford and Lingard to threaten them further. And yeah, I think overall a very good day. 3 points, clean sheet. Doesn't get better. And also, Rafael Varane makes an instant impact the moment he comes back in. I just put out a tweet yesterday. I don't know if you all saw it, but Man United, since Varane's injury, when he was out, 3 games, 11 goals, 2 losses. The moment he comes back in, 1 game, 1 win, and a clean sheet. So that just shows you the kind of impact he and the influence he already has on our team's defense.
One of the things that stands out to me, there's that meme going around, and I've shared it as well. It's Ollie's face imposed on Conte's head, and he's saying, can't sack me for Conte if I turn into Conte. Like that's kind of the joke. But I think people are forgetting that while the formation is obviously widely associated with Antonio Conte, the 3-5-2 is something that Ollie played a lot in the 2019-20 season, his first full season at the club.
Yep, against the big teams.
Against all the big teams, basically, it was 3-5-2 with Luke Shaw at left center back, and then Maguire in the middle, and Lindelof on the right. So this is not a new tactic for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. This is something that, for whatever reason, he had moved away from last season in the big games, and our results had suffered for it. And then this season, obviously, it's been a complete train wreck so far, so I'm not even going to talk about that. But the point is, this is something that we've seen from Ollie before, and this is something that we need to see from Ollie going forward as long as he's here, which is, this is the same manager who came in and said, I'm going to play 4-4-2 diamond with split strikers against Poch's Tottenham team. This is the same manager who came up with Luke Shaw at left center back in the 3-5-2. This is the same manager who came up with the idea of playing 4-4-2 a couple of times, 4-3-3 early on in that half season, then 4-2-3-1. He's a very tactically flexible manager. People say, he doesn't have tactics, but he has so many variations that we've seen from him. The problem is they were all in his first 18 months at the club. After that, he basically, from the start of last season, decided, we want to impose ourselves in the opposition. We're going to play 4-2-3-1 with like 11 out of 14 players in every single game that he trusts. And it worked for a while until January, and then it kind of fell off for a bit, and then it started working a little bit towards the end of the season, but we got undone the Europa League final, and then obviously this season happened. It's just one of those things where we've seen that Ollie can do this before, and that's one of the things that we need to see from him moving forward. He needs to keep that tactical variety. With McFred in midfield, we don't have the technical ability in that midfield to be able to dominate games the way that he wants to in that 4-2-3-1 formation. I'm not saying never play it again. I'm just saying that if we decide to go back to 4-2-3-1 always for the rest of the season, it's not going to end well. He needs to be willing to make those tactical wrinkles like he was early on.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with Ronaldo coming in, especially, 4-2-3-1 is going to be even worse than it was last season. It was fine last season. Obviously, it wasn't a disaster like it's been. But I think with Ronaldo, who doesn't really do much off the ball work, defensively, you need one players around him that are going to make up for that, and two, probably an extra defender, especially against teams that are going to cause problems defensively.
One of the things that I think was helpful also about this formation for us was, a thing that I've pointed out in the past that United tend to do in the 4-2-3-1 that really gets under my skin is this idea that when the ball is on one side of the field, we shift towards it. And it usually happens when the ball is down our right side. So Wan-Bissaka and Lindelof, or Wan-Bissaka and Varane will be dealing with something. And then Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire will end up on the right side of the pitch. And there will be a vast hole on the left side of our defense that anyone can come into and score a goal off of. And we saw this repeatedly, especially against Everton. That was the most notable match. But I think I posted a couple of examples around the time. Newcastle for their goal as well. It was a similar story where all of our back four ends up on half of the pitch, which is insane. If you look at the three at the back, when we're in the defensive phase, it becomes 5-3-2. And unless the defenders want to stand like linked arms together, it's very hard for them to stay on one half of the pitch in that formation. So it basically makes that like bizarre shift impossible. And that helps us a lot defensively because then we're covering the entire area in front of our goal instead of just getting sucked into the ball and leaving this massive space. So I think the system really helped us out. And it's something, especially in the next two games, if anyone in the coaching staff so much as says 4-2-3-1, this week they should be shot Squid Game style immediately on the spot. Like Ed Woodward and the Glazers should be standing there, or John Murtaugh, I don't care, holding like the button for the Squid Game doll. And the second anyone says 4-2-3-1, just shoot them immediately. It's not acceptable. Anyone who plays it, anyone who thinks it's a good idea, like if you even just think it, just on the spot, bye. Like it shouldn't happen. The formation was so successful, and we're playing against teams that it'll be successful against this week as well, because the advantage of the 4-2, the advantage of the 3-5-2 or the 3-4-1-2, depending on how you want to express it, is that we have the ability to lie quite deep and then hit teams on the break, which is kind of funny that we were able to do that with two 35-year-olds in attack, but c'est la vie. So we ended up in this position, and it seems to work well. So I don't know why you would say, Atalanta are a team that's going to attack us. Man City are a team that's going to attack us. They're going to leave spaces in behind. This is the ideal formation to play against those sides. So just changing it shouldn't be an option.
Yeah, and I think when you spoke about the defense sort of just shifting towards one side, I think that comes down to the way that the pressing has been taught in training. It's like they're being told that, okay, if the opposition is on one side who has a player, one of you go towards him, the other person stay around. So it's like a two-man press essentially. And then what happens as a result is when those two defenders come towards the opposition player, the center back then has to move to the right back's position to cover that space, and the other right backs move to the first right back's position to cover that space, and the left back has to move to the center back's position. And so that it's a chain reaction essentially.
I take your point, but the problem with that is I don't know what kind of tactical shit. I understand the idea that they're filling in for each other, but I don't understand what kind of filling in puts 4 defenders in half the pitch.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
You can draw a line halfway through our goal, and then on the right side of that line, all of our defenders are standing there. It just obviously in a normal setup, 2 of them would be there. So if they shift over, it makes sense. And maybe like Harry Maguire goes to the right center back position and Luke Shaw is on his own on the left. I kind of get that. But how on earth do you end up with 4 defenders on half the pitch?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And again, it's 2 things, right? It's first thing is it's the kind of pressing that they're being taught in training, like behind the scenes. That's what the coaches are telling them. Okay, this is the kind of pressing you have to do. You know, you try to fill in when one of the defenders goes out to press. And the second thing is just the application of the players. So it's just those 2 things just sort of not going the way they're supposed to, and it just leaves a massive amount of gap, either on the left or right side. And we've seen it multiple times. Like Leipzig in the Champions League games, we saw Angelino had the entire left side to him available. Like he could just drift in every freaking time they went ahead. You'll find him there. There'll be loads of spaces for that. Why? Because Wan-Bissaka's gone out on the other side. And all Leipzig had to do was switch play, find Angelino, put the cross in the box. That's what they did. And like you said, Everton, Liverpool did it twice just recently. Liverpool did it twice. Salah got 2 goals in that way. So
I'm sorry, did we play Liverpool? I've just blacked that out of my memory.
Okay. Okay. Should I remind you? No, it's okay. I guess I'll be short Squid Game style. But yeah, like you said, for Atalanta and for City, we have to stick to the back 3 formation. I think that works best. Setting back and hitting on the counter is the best solution, given the fact that we have just recent evidence that it works. Even though everyone's going to say it's Spurs and, they're in shit form, yes, but they've still got decent players. They've got Kane, they've got Son, they've got Moura, who seems to be, he's a yo-yo player, but he has his own spells. They had Højbjerg, who was essentially the engine in the midfield. So it wasn't a bad team at all. It's just that they're going through a rough patch and we maximize the most out of it.
He didn't have a good game against us yesterday, but Oliver Skipp is a very talented player, the Spurs defensive midfielder. And he's somebody who, if honestly we could get him for a reasonable fee, I wouldn't hate to see in our midfield. He's a good, I don't know how to say it other than the fact that he's a good defensive midfield talent. And I think he's going to have a good career at Tottenham. So that's a talented team. People might not be familiar with his name, but Højbjerg we've all seen. These are very good, talented players. One thing I will say, just circling back though, one of you mentioned that with Ronaldo in the team, this system really suited us. And I think that kind of is because with Ronaldo, he doesn't press or do anything defensively, really. So you have 2 ways to get around that. The first way is you either don't press as a team, really, and you kind of sit deeper and kind of hit teams on the break, or at least sit deeper, get the ball, and then play out with short passing, even if you want to. But you have to basically, the problem with the pressing system is it leaves gaps in behind. So what you want is the whole team presses as a unit. If only half the team presses, it fails because you leave a space somewhere that the opposition can exploit. And with Ronaldo in the team, that's always going to happen. So pressing is just not an option. So you don't want to press too extensively, at least. And then, so if you're not pressing, now how do you cope? So you essentially have to either sit deep and counterattack, or the other way would be to have really high possession so the opposition doesn't get the ball, which is why Ollie either needs to shift more towards a possession-based style or this sitting deeper 3-5-2 kind of shape. There's just really no room, I think, for the style of football he's been trying to implement the last 2 seasons with Ronaldo, which is that kind of mid-block, 55% possession, quick attacks. We lose the ball and then we quickly get back into shape or press. That's not possible with Ronaldo's lack of defensive effort. If you wanted to play that way, you can't sign Ronaldo, but you have, and he gets paid a load of money, so he's going to be here longer than anybody on the coaching staff if there's a conflict. So Ollie needs to either stick with the deep lying counterattack style, or he needs to go for 60-65% possession like Pep Guardiola or Louis van Gaal. I don't think his past 2 years tactics are tenable with the players that we have now.
I think if you look at it last season, he tried to transition United from a purely counter-attacking side to a more possession-based style. I think that was a transition which you could see last season, which is why our results were so inconsistent. Like you had a good run of games, and then you had that shock defeat against, say, Sheffield, and then you had another good run of games, and then you had a loss against Arsenal. So again, the results were inconsistent, but I think that was because the transition in play was happening. Like if you look at the way we approached the big teams like City, Liverpool, Chelsea, we were playing 4-2-3-1. We weren't playing a back three. We were playing 4-2-3-1. And if we had taken up our chances, we would have won those games. So obviously, in hindsight, if you think about it, we had some pretty good chances against those teams, and if we had converted them, we would be, a lot closer to City than where we finished. So again, it's a bit of inconsistency with the transition. So I see what he's trying to develop. I see that he wants us to play 4-2-3-1, wants to be a lot more attacking, have that extra midfielder inside, like up front. This is why you play with the 4-2-4 set up on the ball. But again, like you said, you've signed Ronaldo, you've got Cavani. So if you sign Ronaldo, he's going to play almost every other game, which means you're going to have to drop the pressing strategy because that's not going to work with him. And one thing I realized with Ronaldo is him and Cavani in tandem, they work really well. They
Yeah, because Edinson Cavani is known for his work rate, his dedication. Even at 34 years old, he's running after every ball. People say Ronaldo doesn't press because he's older. No, Ronaldo doesn't press because that's just not the kind of player he is.
Yeah.
He's old. He's a little older than Cavani, I think a year or two, but not much. They're 2 years. They're very comparable age-wise. Even at 34, Ronaldo didn't press the way that Cavani does. So I think it's not a case of, Ronaldo's body can't handle it. It's a case of Ronaldo's play style has developed that he just doesn't press. And we have to deal with that now that we signed him. And like I said, the way that you do that is you have to sit deeper or you have to have very high possession statistics because the problem is in our system, right? Last season, you had Cavani leading the press from the front, then Bruno Fernandes moving up behind him, McFred behind that. On the wings, you had Rashford or you had Mason Greenwood or Daniel James. These are all players putting in that same press. And so as a system, it worked. The second that Ronaldo stops pressing, and Bruno is still going forward, now you've got two people kind of on the opposition center backs, but the defensive midfielder is free to receive the ball. They get the ball. Now McFred moves forward and someone else has a space behind them. And so it just doesn't work if everyone isn't pressing because someone is always going to be available.
Right.
I don't think we can. I'm not sure we can play the possession sort of style with McTominay and Fred because we know they're not really good on the ball. So I think it suits.
I agree.
Yeah, I think
I'm just saying it's an option, like not necessarily for Ollie and the team this season, but say you go for Ten Hag in the summer, or say you end up bringing in two new midfielders in the summer for Ollie, like however you approach it, it's one way to deal with Ronaldo. It's probably not the way this team can deal with Ronaldo, though. I think you're right. You have to sit deeper and kind of play this. Not necessarily even the 3-5-2. It could be 4-2-3-1, but it has to be 4-2-3-1 without the pressing, because the second we go back to the pressing, we're going to leave gaps in midfield and teams will carve us up the way Liverpool and Leicester did.
Yeah. So what we're not saying play 3-5-2 every single game or play 3-4-3 every single game. What we're saying is against teams that are going to press, like your Atalantas, your Southamptons, your Cities, your Liverpools, against those teams that are going to press, you sit back, play a 3-4-3, and then hit them on the counter. But against teams like, say, Brentford, for example, is a very good example of sitting back and countering, because against them, they're going to come hard at you. So, if you play a 4-2-3-1 like we have been, they're going to rip us apart entirely.
Yeah.
So against those teams, you got to sit back, play a 3-4-3, move on. But against teams like, say, Everton, or say teams like West Ham, teams like Chelsea, you can play a 4-2-3-1 because their natural style is to be defensive, to be a bit conservative, and then they are likely to hit on the counter themselves. So we're not saying play 3-5-2 or 3-4-3 every game. You got to pick and choose depending on the opponent.
I think there might even be, other opportunities for more players with this system, because when you have more protection for the defense with the extra defender, maybe you can get a Van der Beek in there because you've got that extra centre back, you've got that extra protection, and you can
I
do that.
thought
Reese, have you been practicing your stand-up comedy? You think Van de Beek is going to get any minutes under Ollie? That's funny.
No, I honestly think it's possible. I don't think Ollie hates Van der Beek. I think it's just that he doesn't fit into that 4-2-3-1 formation.
I
If
agree.
you
I
play
was just having some
yeah.
minor expense.
I think yesterday would have been a good opportunity for Van de Beek to get some minutes in that setup, and I think we will see a bit of him against Atalanta. I think we will. You could just slot him in for either of McTominay or Fred, and I think he'll be just fine because again, you've got the back protection of the back five, so that
Especially
gives
if you play Matic with a back three. Now you've got 4 defensive players plus the wing backs.
Yeah.
So with all that defensive effort cover, you should be able to play Donny Van de Beek in the midfield.
Exactly right. So yeah, I mean let's see. I think he could feature against Atlanta. It remains to be seen if he sticks with the same formation. But I think 2 standout players from the Spurs game for me were not Ronaldo and Cavani, but McTominay and Wan-Bissaka. I think for me, both of them, McTominay especially in that midfield, and I just feel that McTominay and Fred as a partnership, they usher in the back 3 system. I don't know if it's just me.
No, that makes sense because
the 4-2-3-1 system.
The thing is, and I realized this yesterday when I was watching the match, if you think back over the last 18 months, Lindelof is probably more of an asset getting the ball forwards and creating chances than McTominay or Fred are. The guy plays, I know yesterday he had one that got intercepted and it led to Maguire getting a yellow card, but broadly speaking, the guy plays really good, accurate long balls in behind for the counterattack, especially to Marcus Rashford against Sheffield United in the Champions League last season. He played it again in a couple of matches ago. I don't remember against who exactly. I think it might have been Atalanta. But we've seen that from Lindelof, and he offers that variety. And Harry Maguire, I thought he had his best match this season yesterday. And I know that's not saying a lot because as much as I love Harry Maguire, I wanted us to sign him. I wanted him to be our captain. I'm very happy with Harry Maguire overall as a signing, but he's had an absolute crap season so far.
Yep.
And yesterday I thought that he was very good. The only mistake he made was the foul for the yellow card, and he had to do that because Varane had stepped forward and the I don't remember who it was, but he's going to get beaten for pace. I think it was Lo Celso. So he had to bring him down. I think that was perfectly fair. So I thought he had a good performance, and him and Lindelof both are ball-playing defenders, and Varane gives you pace in the middle to cover either one of them if he has to sprint out to do that. And so I think that back 3 system where you have more of the creativity is on the shoulders of those wide center backs, and the midfielders are more functional as defensive cover. It can work with who we have. I mean, I'd love to see Matic and Van de Beek get a go at some point, but either way, ultimately there's 2 keys for Ollie, right? Tactical variety, as we've seen, especially with the 3-5-2 being deployed in matches like this. And the second one, which people who have ever heard me talk about Paul Pogba will know, make sure that he's sent to North Korea or locked in a basement until his contract expires. He should never see the pitch again for this club. I'm sorry. And I just realized he's not suspended for Atalanta, which makes me sad.
I doubt he plays if that helps.
What was that?
Yeah.
I doubt he plays.
I think there's a decent chance he plays, no, because you're talking about a player who's suspended in the Premier League. If he doesn't play against Atalanta, he's just not going to play. And I don't think Ollie's going to exile him, unfortunately, which is what I'd like to do. I mean, like Siberia, North Korea, Russian Gulag, Chinese labor camp. There's so many great places we could send Paul Pogba.
I mean, yeah, but given the way Atalanta play, I don't see Pogba as a fit there. I'd rather see McTominay Fred. If I'm,
I would too. I'm just saying with Ollie knowing
and I
how
think
frequently
Ollie would think that too, if he's sensible enough.
I hope so. I hope you're right, Vin. I just don't have that much faith that he's going to drop Paul Pogba from all of our matches for the foreseeable future, which is what would happen if he didn't play him this time.
He might just feature after the international break against Norwich or Arsenal, maybe. Who knows?
I love that you put those 2 teams as interchangeable. Arsenal are in decent form.
I know.
And they've been Ollie's kryptonite. Even when we do well, we struggle with Arsenal.
I just want that curse to end, man. Seriously. The Arteta curse still exists. Shit.
Yeah, I think when we come up against Arsenal, it's just going to be like
that'll be a
0-0 or something. But yeah, and I think yeah, I think we probably are better off without Pogba, to be honest. But we'll go on to that later in terms of Atalanta. But yeah, just finishing on the Spurs game. Can I get your man of the match? Firstly, I'll go with McTominay. I know Ali said he was man of the match by a mile. I'd agree with that. I thought he was brilliant. Um, Obviously
Yeah.
Cavani, Ronaldo, Wan-Bissaka, really good as well.
Really unpopular opinion, because I know that Ollie said it and everyone's been praising Scott McTominay. I thought he was okay. The second half was better. In the first half, I thought he was caught on the ball a couple of times. There were some passes that might have been a little bit better. The one who actually impressed me was Fred. I've never thought of Fred as someone who's dynamic with the ball, but he was so good in terms of going forward and kind of distributing, and he was almost playing ahead of McTominay and behind Bruno in like a asymmetrical midfield too, whereas usually McFred kind of just sit there together as like a defensive block. So it was a weird way to see us set up, but I really thought that he was helping out quite a bit. And also he had one long shot, and it was a good one, because usually with Fred, he blasts it over the bar constantly, and it's so frustrating. Like I just look at him and I'm like, there needs to be a thing where anytime Fred takes a shot in training, immediately someone throws a boot at him, and just to make sure that he stops. So I usually am not a huge Fred fan, but I thought he had a very good performance yesterday.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I mean, the fact that Fred got a shot on target, that itself impressed me. And it wasn't just any regular 6-yard shot. It was like, I would say 15, 20 yards, I would say. And Lloris had to like dive because the ball was swerving away from him. So he actually had to force a save. So fair credit to him. He had a good game as well, like I said. But yeah, for me, I think it would be I think for me, McTominay, man of the match. I think he was solid in that midfield. Defensively and going forward, skip past pressing traps really well, like he always does. Progressed the ball really well, made interceptions, tackles as he should. And overall, I think it was a pretty good box-to-box, solid performance.
yeah. I think we need to see more of that from him, to be honest.
Yeah. And I
Because
think
we haven't
I
seen.
think him,
Yeah.
like I said, him and Fred seem to usher in that system. So that's one way of getting the best out of them.
Yeah, I think the thing with McTominay compared to Fred is maybe his floor is higher, because you never see, oh, McTominay's had a disaster
Exactly.
class. Whereas with Fred, you think, you never know what he's going to do.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I don't think Fred is a good signing. We paid 50 million for basically hatchet man run around donkey player, which is absurd. Like, it's like Blaise Matuidi, except Blaise Matuidi was more consistent. I'm not happy with Fred as a signing. I just thought he had a good match yesterday, and I wanted to acknowledge him for that. I just checked; he had 100% long pass completion, which I think might be one of the things that stood out to me a little bit. And on top of that, he also played 4 passes into the final third, whereas usually, like if you look back to Villarreal or Aston Villa, he played 1. So it was nice to see that Fred was able to do something a little bit more productive than his usual meandering around and just pressing people for no reason.
That's called being an engine resurgent.
I know it is, but the problem is, like, N'Golo Kante runs around and he'll tackle people. Fred runs around, but there doesn't seem to be an aim to it. It's kind of headless chicken running, which is why I'm not a huge fan of him as a player. But again, I thought he was good yesterday.
Yeah, I think he's been having a good, I would say, 2 to 3 games. Like he was all right against Liverpool, considering. I mean, that's setting the bar low because everyone else was shit. But he was all right. And even against Leicester as well, I think he had a good game. So I guess, a decent patch for him.
Yeah, for sure. So I just wanted to sort of think before we go on to Atalanta. I don't know if we touched on it slightly, so I don't know. But what do you think this means for Ollie? Because obviously his job was sort of on the line there. I think if he lost, probably would have been sacked. Yeah, Surgeon, what do you think?
I said on the last podcast that after the 5-0 defeat to Liverpool, I would have sacked Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And I've never said that before. During all of the previous steps, I've never once questioned his status as manager. So for me, this was a unique experience going into a match, hoping that we win, but not being confident in the manager necessarily. Um, it's very important that we won. I'm glad we won. It keeps Ole in the job, gives him a fighting chance. But having said that, Tottenham, since I think September 1st, so since the August, like the international break at the end of August, have been, I think it's 17th in expected points. So the fourth worst team in the league over the last 2 months. I know that we look at Spurs as a name, we look at the players on the team sheet, and we say that it's a big game. But if you look at the way they've been performing against other sides, this is a team that's more comparable to, say, Burnley in past years, where they're kind of that 16th, 17th place team. So it's an important win. It's a good result. We saw a lot of good things. The tactical shift and the coaching that was shining through was very optimistic, but ultimately it's meaningless without knowing what happens in the next two matches, because if we beat Spurs, Nuno gets sacked tomorrow, and then we lose the next two matches, Ollie still has to go. If we go ahead and win against, say, Atalanta and then draw with Man City, or even lose to Man City 2-1, it's probably fine. We can keep going, see how things go. So it's just one of those things where we need more data points against better teams, and Atalanta and Man City are both vastly better than Tottenham Hotspur at this moment in time.
Yeah, I think it really works to our advantage as well if we can just get to the end of the season with Solskjaer, because I don't you can't
There's so
say
much more
this.
variety. Yeah. If you can
Yeah,
get to the sorry, Reese, if you can get to the end of the
sorry.
season, you can hire Maurizio Pochettino, you can hire Eric Ten Hag, you can
Yeah,
hire. I don't want him, but if the board really wants it, it's probably easier to hire Brendan Rodgers. Look, Vin, I hate the idea of hiring Brendan. I can see your facial expression right now. I don't want him. I'm just saying he's been linked to the job, and it's easier to get him in the summer than it is now if the board really wants him. So whoever we want, changing managers is easier in the summer, because right now, basically, you have Antonio Conte standing there and just twerking for United, essentially trying to get that job, which is, he's a talented manager. I am a fan of Antonio Conte, but he comes with 2 to 3 year cycles, and he's going to be very demanding on the board in a way that maybe the club doesn't want to be run in that way, for better or for worse. And so if that's the scenario, the club would most definitely be better served trying to get to the summer and reassessing the situation then. And who knows? Again, we saw that I think it's, what was it, the FA Cup match that Sir Alex Ferguson had to win. Otherwise, he would have lost his job in, I think, 89, I think it was. So it's one of those things where, you never know. It might be the start of that kind of turnaround. But whatever ends up happening, I think the club has more options if we can get to the summer with top four and Ollie. The problem becomes if top four is endangered by keeping Ollie. At that point, I think that you can't have Rafael Varane and Bruno Fernandes and Cristiano Ronaldo playing in the Europa League. Like, that's just something that can't be fathomed. And at that point, you have to hit the Conte button. So we'll see how things go. But I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, I honestly wouldn't mind Conte, to be honest. But yeah, as you say, I think we need to get to the end of the season, ideally, because the club don't want him. I think that's it's probably quite clear from the rumours and stuff that the club don't want him. So yeah, you wait for a Ten Hag or a Pochettino or yeah, Vingo, and you wanted to say.
Yeah. Obviously the board has given Ollie 3 games. He's got 1 down, and he's got to win. If he gets 3 out of 3, then obviously I think he continues to the end of the season.
2 out of 3 is enough. I mean, honestly, if you lose to
So if
Man
it's
City,
two
it's okay.
2 wins and a draw, you'll take it, right?
2 wins
sure.
and a narrow loss is fine as well, honestly. You can't expect to win all 3 of matches against the level of opposition that we faced this week. The problem becomes if it happens that either the defeat is like a big one, like the Liverpool one, that would be a problem. The other problem would be if it's in the Champions League and we're endangering our qualification into the round of 16. That becomes a problem, even if you do beat Spurs and Man City.
Yeah, so let's see. I've got a sneaky feeling he sort of fights back out of this. We've seen this time and time again with Ollie. When he's in a crisis, he's come out of it, and then we go on this incredible run. So
I saw somebody say the other day the 2 best teams in the history of football are Pep's Barcelona and Manchester United under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer when he's under threat of losing his job.
They're not wrong. Whoever this person is isn't actually wrong if you think about it. So yeah, I think he comes out of this, and yeah, and then after that go on to the end of the season, see what happens. If they do want to go Conte, they can go Conte, they can go Ten Hag, Pochettino. Just don't go for Brendan Rodgers. I'd rather stick with Solskjaer than
I know, me too. I can't fathom why
it's
on
like
earth you want
literally
bottle
moving the
job bread.
Norwegian to the British version of the same thing. Like
Yeah, except you lose all of the connection to the club's DNA and history, while getting the same results. Probably, it just seems like such a lateral move to go to Brendan Rodgers, and then he has the Liverpool history too. So you lose your club DNA.
I'd rather take Conte instead and just be happy with it.
Conte, yeah. I mean, the only thing that would possibly be worse in my book than going for Brendan Rodgers would be, hey, let's hire Jose Mourinho again. That's probably the only worse option that the club could go for.
I don't know. I do sort of rate Brendan Rodgers, but he's not Man United.
He's a good manager. He's a good manager for Arsenal, for Tottenham. Yeah. He's a good manager for Leicester, for Everton. He's just not a good manager for a club that wants to win a title. He's a good manager for a club that wants to be between 4th and 7th.
And win the odd FA Cup.
Yeah, he's like David.
Describes Arsenal, really.
He's David Moyes with good football. That's what he is.
Yeah, he'd be the perfect fit for Arsenal if Arteta doesn't work.
Yeah, it's like late Wenger, right? 4th to 7th, exactly. They win a couple of FA Cups. It's perfect.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, good stuff. Now we'll move on to Atalanta. Okay, so we'll move on to Atalanta then. Obviously, another big game in the supposed 3 games that Oli has to save his job. That was the rumours. But yeah, obviously beat them. Was it last week? Yeah. That was, a good comeback win, but I think we're going to look for more of a Spurs sort of performance where we perform for 90 minutes. It's going to be slightly more difficult against Atalanta because they're a much better team than Spurs. But yeah, Vim, what were your thoughts on it? Are you confident going into the game?
Well, I would be confident if we're sticking to the same system that we did yesterday. If that's what we're going for, then yeah, I think I'm fairly confident we will get a result. It's, I guess, maybe if not a win, a draw at least. I think we'll take that. Again, the key is Atalanta. They're not going to change the way they're going to approach the game. The way it's going to be the same way they played at home at Old Trafford. Attacking, cutting through the midfield, being aggressive, pressing. That's what they're going to be, and they're going to get, I think, a few of their first team players back, which wasn't the case last week. So that's going to make them a bit more formidable as an opposition. So, and given the way they play, we can't leave open gaps in midfield. We can't play with a 4-2-4 defensive system on the ball. So it's going to have to be defensively solid, compact, and back 3 is the way to go again.
Martin Darun, who is a defensive midfielder, played in the back 3 again for Atalanta yesterday against Lazio. So they might be getting someone back soon, but at least as of yesterday, they were short on center backs.
Is Demiral out?
Demiral played, so we played yesterday.
You recovered. Okay.
Yeah, it's still a formidable team. Demiral, Koop Miners, Pasalic, Ilicic, Zapata. They've got a very talented squad, and like you said, our chances basically hinge on the system that we play. Louis van Gaal once said, I think it was after the match in the 2014 World Cup against Mexico, that the best way to counter a back 3 is to play a back 3 yourself. Because inevitably what happens with a back 3, and the reason why it's so successful against 4 at the back formations, is when you play a back 3, you have 2 strikers who can take on 2 center backs on the opposite team, and you end up having 3 center backs on 1 usually striker these days. And so it gives you numbers on both ends of the pitch centrally, which obviously are the higher impact zones for goals. So that's why it matches up so well. The issue here is, what do we play? Because other than yesterday, basically for the last 18 months, it's 4-2-3-1 in prey. So if we go back to the 4-2-3-1, I think we're going to lose this match. And like I said, the second somebody in the coaching staff even thinks the words 4-2-3-1, just Squid Games them immediately. I can't be bothered with that formation this week. But assuming we go with the 3-5-2 or 3-4-3, any variation on 3 at the back, I think what we'll see is United will go ahead and grab a score draw. And that'll probably be enough for us to get through in the group, because the last matches are Villarreal and Young Boys. We should beat Young Boys at home. Then I thought we should beat Young Boys away. And I'm not sure what
I think
happens.
it'll be better. I think that'll be better.
I'm not sure what happens with Villarreal either, but if we get a point here and 3 points against Young Boys, that's 10 points. And Sir Alex always said that was usually enough to get you through. I don't know in second or first, but that should get us through. So we should be okay if we get a draw. And I think that's probably where we're headed, because what I've noticed with United this season is whenever I feel any small bit of optimism or happiness or belief that we're definitely going to get a result, that means that disappointment is around the corner. And whenever I feel that we're definitely going to lose, there is no hope, that's when we get a win. And I'm in between right now, but I'm leaning optimistic, which makes me think we're going to drop points.
As long as it's not a loss.
Yeah, a loss is tragic. We can't lose this one and then go into Man City, which is probably a loss, honestly. So that would probably be.
I think we can muster. I think we can muster a win over there.
We could. We have a good record against Pep. It's just the problem with good records is at some point they have to regress to the mean, and that concerns me.
Let's see.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So starting 11. Yeah. Sorry, my connection is struggling. But yeah, I think we need to stick with the same system. I think Fred, they might stay. We were speaking about it earlier. Van der Beek might come in. I think Rashford maybe for Cavani. Ronaldo was taken off towards the end, so he was probably getting saved. But yeah, Surgeon, what do you think about the line?
So I think I would probably look at, I don't want to say probably, but I would consider changing it to 3-4-3 maybe. And I say that because I'm not sure I would start Bruno Fernandes. If I play Bruno, I stick with the 3-4-1-2. But if you don't play Bruno, you could probably play like Jadon Sancho, Mason Greenwood, and Ronaldo as a front three against Atalanta, and you'd probably do quite well with that. The issue is basically whether or not we rest Bruno for Man City. If we do, then you could try that. If not, then the standard front three is probably fine. So either way, though, three at the back, and I think there's no room to rotate those three. I think it's Lindelof, Varane, and Maguire. I never want to see Eric Bailly play for this club again. I'm going to be very clear about that. I think the leaks in midweek, he's responsible for a large chunk of them, and his behavior is largely disgraceful. It was a poor decision to give him a new contract. When he plays like the Ivorian Phil Jones. When he gets injured, he's also the Ivorian Phil Jones. And then he leaks like he's Paul Pogba. It's a massive problem. I think whoever the manager is, their first priority should be telling Eric Bailly to go fuck himself. Actually, sorry, second priority, Paul Pogba first.
I thought we were done with him. I thought we were done with him shooting into North Korea. What happened to that?
I mean, whatever way, if we can get a buy one, get one deal on a gulag with North Korea, buy one for Pogba, get one for Bailly free, however that works out.
Yeah,
the point is both, I don't want to see either of them. So I would go with the same back three for the center backs. And then I think you can rotate at wing back. For me, Alex Telles deserves a shot. I think in the limited minutes he's played this season, he's been better than Luke Shaw. I didn't think Luke Shaw was good yesterday. And so I would give Telles a go. And the other position is harder because Wan-Bissaka can play both of these matches. And that's probably safer, but you got to give Dalot minutes somewhere. You know what? No, we're going to go with Wan-Bissaka. Wan-Bissaka and Telles as wing backs.
I think this is my time to sort of interject. I don't necessarily think we should play Dalot. Obviously, this is a massive game. I'm surprising here.
For those of you who are not watching on video, both Vin and I have the look of shock on our face that someone would have if they got proposed to spontaneously.
I'm surprised to say the least. But go on.
I don't necessarily think we should play Dalot. We have been suspect defensively, and I know against Spurs, if we played Dalot in that game, we probably would have been fine. But Atalanta are going to pose a lot more of a threat to us, I think, and we need to be solid defensively. And we know, well, Dallo, I think, is better than people think defensively. And I know he obviously had an awful game against Danjuma, but I think the team didn't really help him out. But yeah, I think we should play Wan-Bissaka, to be honest, because I mean, yeah, if he plays Dallo, I'm going to be really happy, obviously. But I think it's better to go with Wan-Bissaka.
Yeah, I think the back three is a formation that suits Diogo Dalot because I think what his strengths are is getting forward and crossing. And he makes good runs, honestly, most of the time. So I think that Dalot would benefit from a shift to three at the back. I think, broadly speaking, our squad would benefit with the exception of two players, because I think our center backs are suited to it. It covers Harry Maguire's lack of pace. It covers Lindelof's lack of physicality. It goes ahead and covers for sometimes Luke Shaw's suspect positioning. Tellez is more suited to three at the back. Most of our wingers are essentially strikers that have been converted to wingers, like Martial, Rashford, Greenwood. So if you played them in a front two, it would be fine. The only two players who really in our squad don't suit this formation are Aaron Wan-Bissaka, because he's not great with his crossing, although yesterday some of them were okay. And then also Jadon Sancho, because he doesn't have any natural wingers. So I think that's probably the two things holding you back. Otherwise, our squad is arguably more suited to a back three. And so I do agree with Reese, though, that this is not the game for Diogo Dalot. Would you agree with that back five, though, Vin, or would you play Luke Shaw or rotate in Eric Bailly or something?
Yeah, so back five. Yeah, I was actually thinking about this. Obviously, Varane in the center, Maguire as your right center back. I'd actually go for Luke Shaw as left center back. Because there have been occasions in the past when we played a back three. If you remember the 2019-20 season, Luke Shaw played with Lindelof and Maguire in that back three. He played as a left center back.
What I will say is I think the last time Harry Maguire played on the right side of any kind of center partnership was probably at Hull City. It's been a long time since Harry Maguire has played on the right side of defense. And I realize he's still playing as a center back. He's naturally right-footed. It's probably going to be fine. But I just want to note that for anyone who wasn't familiar, that, you just move him over and it's easy. Like, it would be a little bit of an adaptation for him.
Yeah, I mean, Maguire can play in the middle, so.
Yeah,
I mean,
you
put
in the
Varane
middle.
in the
That's
middle,
true.
and then you can manage him around. But yeah, I think I would actually give Tellez an opportunity on the left wing back position, because so if you stick with the 3-4-1-2, you have Tellez. He's going to put crosses in to Ronaldo and Cavani, right? You've got our two strikers. If that's how you want to play, you're going to have someone who crosses. Now, obviously, Wan-Bissaka isn't the best of crossers, right? But you got to have someone on the other side then who can put crosses. Now, we had Shaw against Spurs. Now, if you can put Tellez in there, why not? I mean, he's pretty good with crosses. He can loop them inside the box. You've got two strikers, make the most of it. So that's the back five I'd go with. So
here's
Tellez,
a question.
Shaw, Varane, Maguire, Wan-Bissaka.
In August 2014, when Jesse Lingard was making his debut against Swansea City for a then hype Dutch manager named Louis van Gaal, he played at right wing back before he got injured and missed the next 6 months and went on loan. But while he played as a right wing back. Would you consider maybe throwing in Lingard there? Because he does have the work rate to go up and down both ends of the pitch. He just obviously is not a tackler or anything like that.
And I'm going to use the same counterpoint which you used against me, was that was 2014.
When did I say that?
You said the last time Maguire played on the right side was when he was at Hull, which is around the same time.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, like I said, I would play Wan-Bissaka, but there is an argument at some point, not necessarily this match, but if we stick with this formation moving forward, for trying something more attacking from that right wing back spot, you could maybe
if you want to try and go all out attacking, play Jadon Sancho as a right.
I was about to say that, actually. That would be another option. Maybe against Watford, though, after the break. This is not something to try.
That'll be a good one to experiment. But I don't think we're going to play a back three against Watford. So I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
I mean,
for this one, for this game, I think this will be my back five. I'll do Tellez, Wan-Bissaka, and then I'll have Shaw, Varane, and Maguire.
So basically, it's the same as mine, except you basically put in Luke Shaw instead of Victor Lindelof.
Yeah.
Okay.
He can feature in City. Big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. If Hudson-Odoi can play right wing back, then I think Jesse Lingard can play it. Probably
Yeah,
Jadon Sancho.
that's
So,
what I had in mind. It's where I came
yeah.
up with the idea of playing, Lingard or Sancho at right wing back, looking at what Tuchel's done with Chelsea.
Yeah. But I think if you're not going to play Wan-Bissaka, you're going to go slightly more attacking. I think it's just
Yeah.
Callum. So, but yeah, something that maybe we haven't thought about. Would you chuck Ian Henderson into this, because obviously De Gea has been really strong in terms of his shot stopping this season, but I saw something on Twitter, and it was like his shot stopping actually isn't making up for his sweeping and his sort of cross claiming and stuff like that. So do you sort of think, oh, it might be time to at least give Ian Henderson a chance because he's sort of been frozen out a bit?
Yeah, but we're not going to be playing a high line, are we, against Atlanta? So if you're playing a high line, then it makes sense to have a sweeper like Henderson at the back, so you can carry the ball forward, play like from somewhere near the half line, and then if in case you lose the ball, and then you have runners behind, Henderson can come forward and then sweep the ball away. But we're not going to be playing that style. Playing a back three, this is like a back five off the ball, and then we're going to be setting back, and Atlanta are going to come at us with shots. So you would rather have a shot stopper than a sweeper in that situation.
I think what Vin's saying makes a lot of sense. It's a really difficult topic for me because I'm a huge fan of Dean Henderson. I think one day, whether at United or another club, he's going to be one of the top 5 goalkeepers in the world. But having said that, David De Gea has had a good season so far. I thought he was finished, but he's disproving me so far. There's a stat for advanced goalkeeping called post-shot expected goals minus goals allowed, which is basically the idea that you look at when the shot is taken, how many like xg are there, and then you look at how many goals you concede and you look at the difference, and that's how much your goalkeeper is contributing in theory, right? So on that stat, David De Gea has the third best psxg 90 in the Premier League. The only two who are better than him are Aaron Ramsdale and Edouard Mendy. So we're talking about a player who's performing at a very high level. David De Gea is, I think, plus 0.13 per 90. In the past couple of seasons, he's been near zero. So that's a dramatic improvement. Like, this is numbers similar to his 2017-18 peak. The problem is, of course, with David De Gea, he doesn't come out for crosses. He doesn't sweep in behind. His distribution is up and down. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes he'll pass the ball straight to the opposition, like that happened one time yesterday. So there are some features of David De Gea's game that make him ill-suited to maybe being the goalkeeper for the next 5 years. But as Vin said, we're going to be sitting back in a back five in the defensive phase with probably at least one, if not two, defensive midfielders in front of that back three. It just strikes me that sweeping and things like that aren't as important when the defensive line is 12 yards from the goalkeeper. So I think for this match, probably in the form that he's in, you can stick with David De Gea.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I can accept that. Yeah, what about the midfield then? We mentioned Van der Beek might come in, Matic, McTominay, Fred. What do you think?
One person who's not going to be there.
No, I'm not sure he's not going to be there. I think there's a very good chance he plays, which terrifies the shit out of me. Like, he is. So for those of our listeners who are American, you might be familiar with Stephen A. Smith from ESPN. He always talks about the accident waiting to happen. And I think that's the best summary of Paul Pogba that I have ever heard. He didn't use it to describe Pogba. He talks about American sports, but I think it really applies that Paul Pogba is the accident waiting to happen. He always says, some way, somehow, just wait, it'll happen. And that's what Paul Pogba is. And so I hope we don't see him, but I think there's a very decent chance you could see like McTominay or Matic next to Pogba. Personally, if I had to pick, though, I would probably go with Matic and Van de Beek or McFred, one or the other. It's really hard to make the decision between those two because I think McFred is probably better suited to the way we want to play, but I'm not sure you can play them 3 games, 90 minutes in 1 week. So if we have to rest, then I would go with Matic and Van de Beek for rotation's sake. But the ideal pairing would be McFred for this way, the way we want to play.
I mean, Matic played well. He got an assist. So
Oh, he's a good player, and especially in front of a back three where he has to do less running because there's people behind him, and we're sitting deeper as well. I think that he could do a very good job for us. So I think Matic, I don't have a problem playing necessarily. Donny van de Beek, I think, would do well next to Matic. The problem is, I think there's a better chance that Paul Pogba plays, captains the club, and signs a 10-year contract tomorrow than there is that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer selects Donny van de Beek to start this match.
That's not that extreme. The odds aren't that bad.
So agreed. I think we need to save McTominay and Fred for City, because obviously they're one of the best teams in the world. We're going to need as much defensive sort of leg as possible. I'd go with probably McTominay and Van de Beek, or Matic and Fred, one of them.
Oh, so you'd keep one of McFred and rest the other.
Yeah. You keep one of them, and then.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that because I think
rest both.
The reason why I wouldn't do that, I've noticed this, and it applies more so to Fred than it does to McTominay, honestly. But if you look at McTominay and Fred, they seem to do better when they're played together. Like there's like a synergistic effect to it where you get like a 6 out of 10 McTominay and a 6 out of 10 Fred. But if you play them together, you get 7.5 out of 10s from both of them. So I would probably go with. I think Matic and Van de Beek after having talked it out, and to rest those players. But I don't think I would break up McFred. If we're playing them, play both. Otherwise, don't play either.
True.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, I'd go for Matic and Van de Beek as well, simply because, again, playing a back five and plus McTominay and Fred can't play, 3 games in a week. You need them at their sort of fully fit best against City, which is going to be crucial as well. So I'd rather have them for City, and then I'll play Matic and Van de Beek for Atalanta, which is not that bad a combination as people think. I mean, Van de Beek has.
I thought they were really good together against West Ham in the League Cup. Like they played well.
They played well. Like Van de Beek, he played against young boys in the Champions League the first game, and he looked all right with Fred. So I mean, I think just playing against European teams suits him better, I guess, at this point, but rather than playing against Premier League teams. So I think if that's the case, then why not play him? Play him and then play Matic. So who hasn't played in a while, I think. Matic hasn't played in a while, has he?
It's been a hot minute, yeah.
Yeah. But let's see.
Yeah. What about the forwards then? Ronaldo has saved, as I said, in the last 10-15 minutes. So he's probably going to play. Do you think Rashford next to him? I think that's what I'd probably do.
I want to save Marcus Rashford for Man City. I feel like he's ideal against the way that Pep Guardiola teams come forward. You want to have some pace on the counterattack. Although I do think that having seen Cavani play 90 minutes, there's probably we're going to see Rashford and Ronaldo as a front two. But I personally would consider going with Greenwood, Sancho, and Ronaldo as a 3 and rest Bruno and Cavani and Rashford, and then re-engage those players against Man City probably. I do think that maybe you go with Bruno Fernandes because he's just too good to drop. And I'm trying to rotate in Jadon Sancho here, but maybe you just go with Greenwood and Ronaldo with Bruno in behind. But however you play it, I think I would like to save Marcus Rashford for the Man City match because I really think he's a good fit for that game.
Okay. Odd question. So wait, you're going for the 3-4-3 essentially, right?
I am, although I understand some skepticism about it. I actually hold on. No, I'm going to change my mind on that. I will play Bruno Fernandes and go with the front two of Greenwood and Ronaldo. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because I just realized if we're playing with Matic and Van de Beek, we've got a more progressive midfielder with Donny Van de Beek in there. So I don't want to play a midfield 2 and have Jadon Sancho in front as like a defensive contributor. That just doesn't work. So I think we'll go with 3-5-2 or 3-4-1-2. But I would go with Bruno Fernandes and then Greenwood rather than Rashford.
I mean, Bruno would want to play every game. That's how he is. So I wouldn't be surprised if he plays. Is there a case for the front two? Now, obviously, Ronaldo and Cavani have played Cavani's played 90 minutes. Ronaldo's played about 80 minutes, I think. So is there a case for, so obviously, Jadon Sancho won't fit in that 3-4-1-2 setup. How about
He
Greenwood?
can
And
play as a number 10. I
Martial?
just don't know if that's necessarily the way to go.
How about, is that a case for Martial to fit in that front too?
No.
The problem is we're talking about one spot because with Ronaldo's Champions League love of being the top scorer, there's no way he doesn't start.
But he won't play against City as well. So I mean, you
I
gotta
think he's
rest him
gonna. I
somewhere.
think he's starting all 3 games. He's gonna play 60 minutes against Atalanta and then 60 minutes against Man City. I would love to see him rested in midweek and go with a front two of like Greenwood and I don't know. Hell, you could play Sancho up there. You could play Greenwood and Sancho. Or something like that. Like there's different ways to play. You could play Rashford and Sancho. You play Rashford and Greenwood.
Rashford and Greenwood, yeah.
You play Martial and
yeah, you could have
Greenwood.
Martial and Greenwood as well.
I would love to rest Ronaldo. I think that's not going to happen. So if Ronaldo is playing, we're talking about one spot, and I would probably give it to Mason Greenwood. Although with some of the leaks last week, maybe that's not the best combination we could go for. Maybe there's a case for going with someone else as Ronaldo's strike partner.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, let's see. I mean, if Ronaldo, I'd like to see Ronaldo rested as well. In which case, I would play Martial and Greenwood as the two strikers up front. Because again, I'd want to see a fully rested Rashford against City. Want to see Sancho on the right somehow play a 3-4-3 against City, or however you wish. Have Rashford, Sancho, and then play Ronaldo.
Okay, I just thought about it a little bit. I want to change what I would like to see.
Oh, okay.
I've got an idea, and this might be insane, but I think I like it. Jesse Lingard in the 10.
Yeah.
That gives you the defensive cover.
Van de Beek in the 10.
Or Van de Beek in the 10, you could play like Matic and McTominay or something behind him. The point is, I didn't like going with the 3 in up front who don't defend when you're playing with Van de Beek in the midfield too. But if you either move Van de Beek forward and then add another midfielder, or you go ahead and play Jesse Lingard in the number 10 slot, that gives you the ability to rest Bruno Fernandes. And I think with the way that Atalanta play, we're probably okay playing Jesse Lingard in the 10 spot. So I'm going to go with, just to give it again, Lindelof, Maguire, Varane as the back 3. I'm going to go with Wan-Bissaka, Matic, Van de Beek, Alex Telles as the 4, and then in front of them Jesse Lingard, and then I'll go with, since it's my choice, I'll go with Mason Greenwood, and I'll go with Cristiano Ronaldo. That would be my selection.
Okay.
What about you, Finn?
Yeah, so my selection, what I would like to see, like my desired sort of 11 would be David De Gea, obviously, Luke Shaw, Rafael Varane, Harry Maguire, Alex Telles, Wan-Bissaka, so that's a back 5. Midfield 2 for me would be, Matic, Van de Beek, Bruno in the 10, 2 strikers up front, Mason Greenwood, Anthony Martial.
Okay, so basically, I assumed that Ronaldo was undroppable. You assumed that Bruno was undroppable. We kind of built our teams around that. Also, Anthony Martial. I don't feel as strongly about him as I do about Eric Bailly and Paul Pogba. I would like to see Martial sold in the future window. He's not in Gulag North Korea territory for me yet, but
he's living a respectful life.
It's just, I'm not satisfied with the way that he's been playing, but off the pitch, I think that because Martial is so slovenly and doesn't really seem to care about things, the beauty of that is when he gets dropped, he's not the kind of person who's leaking to the press or whining. Yeah. Like he's just collecting his paycheck, sitting there, playing when he's given minutes, and he's okay with that. And, that's frustrating in a sense, but it's also good in the sense that he's not a leaker. The problem with Eric Bailly is when he doesn't get minutes, he's actively undermining the team, which is a problem. And of course, I've already mentioned that Paul Pogba is the accident waiting to happen. So,
yeah, fair enough.
Sorry, I just had to squeeze that in there one more time about the accident waiting to happen.
Yeah. So I think De Gea in goal for me. 5. I'd probably rest Shaw and play Wan-Bissaka. So same as Spurs, but Telles for sure. Midfield, I'd probably agree with you with if you're going to play, you can't just drop one of McTominay and Fred, because then the other one will probably have a disaster class. So you played.
That's more of a risk with Fred than McTominay. Let's just be clear.
Yeah, McTominay, he's all right.
He'll be okay without Fred. Fred looks like a lost puppy without McTominay.
To be fair, when we played McTominay and Matic together, we've been pretty awful.
Yeah, I think they're two. I think the problem is McTominay's been molded to try to be more defensive, and now the result of that is you end up with two players who are basically just sitting. And so it's not necessarily the most progressive formation in the world, but it is better than having Fred sitting there without McTominay looking for his, I guess, the guy who guides him.
So yeah, Matic and Van der Beek with probably Lingard with them. And then Rashford and Ronaldo up front. I'd be okay with Bruno as well for Lingard, but I feel like Lingard deserves a go. So yeah, I don't know if you guys have anything else to.
Just prediction time.
Yeah, I'll go with. I think 1-1.
2-2.
Oh damn. Okay. 2-1 United.
Wow, Vin's an optimist.
My bio says it all. Yeah, 2-1. I think somehow I just being extremely optimistic and sort of extremely, I don't know, just thinking about how's it gonna go. Could be 2-1. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. That was a good podcast. Thanks everyone who's made it to the end. Obviously, if you're on YouTube, make sure to give us a like. Let us know, I don't know, your lineups maybe in the comments. That'll be interesting to see. If you're elsewhere, give us a follow. But yeah, thank you very much.